Welcome to the Comfortable in Chaos Podcast. Strangle your demons and let's go.
Y'all need Jesus!
I raise a hallelujah in the presence of my enemies. Here we go. I raise a hallelujah. Heaven's gonna fight for me. Welcome to the Comfortable in Chaos Podcast. Sometimes that's all we can do, man, is turn that war over. It's not ours to fight. We are not equipped. We don't have the energy. We don't have the bandwidth. And we were told that vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And we're also told by Christ that his yoke is easy. Now, of course, is it applicable to this exact circumstance? Maybe not, but you get the point. There's some things that are totally out of your control and you don't need to contend with and or worry about them. And a lot of times, unless you're directly involved and or you have the gumption to choose to be involved, these doggone leaders appointed before us, they leave a lot to be desired. And I told our new brand of Canadian leadership that is ever burgeoning that I'd touch upon Trudeau. But you know what? Canadians are so fed up with that buffoon and they understand who he is. And I said, hey, maybe we'd touch upon the fact, is he Castro's son? I did the research because they look remarkably similar. And it just isn't true. Excuse me, it just isn't true. He was born in 71. He's close to my age, 52, 53. And unless Margaret had a wild hair, and we know that she's crazier than a marsh hare jumping around, the family didn't travel to meet Fidel until 76. So that certainly didn't stop her indiscretions previous to or after. But we just can't connect the dots and make good old Prime Minister Trudeau one of Castro's boys. But I tell you what, he came to power after his father, actually as the Prime Minister in 15. And those millennials now who ushered him in because he was still youthful and energetic. And by God, I mean, he had partied with them, right? I mean, think about it. We know about Margaret's, what would we call, transgression. She's been with everyone in Hollywood, followed the Rolling Stones around, even went with prominent American politicians such as Edward Kennedy. I mean, there were so many affairs. I mean, she had blended it up and made her own cocktail. And she's out on the comedy circuit these days. I only mention it because Canadians know who it is that they allowed into power. It's no different than we know with Joe Biden. Just a simple hack from a very small state who saw an opportunity to get involved and then rode it from that point forward and is so far distanced from the average American and insulated that he has no understanding of what it is that they have to contend with. And this doggone guy, Justin's been groomed by his mom to be liberal-minded, although I hear he had more conservative values, but he learned to play the role and wantonly did so to get to where he needs to be because the guy loves himself. As Poliver says, if he was a chocolate bar, he would eat himself. That is who the Canadians have. And the crazy thing is, I only mention Margaret because in this case, the lady, the apple doesn't fall far from the Trudeau tree. He was wild too. We know he was a drama teacher at the prestigious West Point Gray Academy. He had to leave for sexual indiscretions. And from what the Buffalo Chronicle has reported in neighboring New York, this guy had multiple incidents. And in talking to people that he grew up with, he just had a lascivious appetite for all things that pointed in that direction. And we know at that private academy, the girl was quite young, but she was the daughter of a very wealthy Canadian businessman. So I'm sure that Justin targeted her appropriately. It was not by design. And both sides would not want that to get out. And then they had ample non-disclosure statements with very punitive penalties should either side ever discuss it further. But that's why he left. And that's why he is so good at what he does. He is theatrical. He's not an ugly dude. He looks pretty good for 52. And he reminds me of Zelensky, albeit a little bit more sophisticated. So isn't that something, how we kind of get these actors going and prop them up on the world stage? I mean, when Trudeau was faced with Xi Jinping at the last G20 summit, Xi Jinping, through his translator, you could see the utter contempt and disdain when he was next to Trudeau. In fact, he separated, he gave him his back, and said everything that we've talked about in confidence has been leaked, meaning Trudeau, always looking to get the upper hand, and Lord knows his ratings need to improve, but he needs to show that he has something that smatters of leadership and or strength, and so he has divulged to the Canadian media his conversations with Xi Jinping. So Xi Jinping left him standing there, kind of like the petulant boy and the old man who just gave him advice. And so the world recognizes this. Canada recognizes this. Pierre Poilievre is going to just emasculate this dude because image is everything and his ego is everything. These millennials that helped to usher him in are now burdening themselves with more responsibility, more real life, and they realize that his policy, thoughts, and what has interjected itself over the mindset of Canada is unsustainable. And so in those regards, they're very much like us. And despite who this idiot was, and despite the idiot that Joe Biden is, we put them where they are. Although, do we believe in those last election results? Absolutely not. But up until that point, we've accommodated them. It's our own fault. So we do have some parallels. We have these buffoons in leadership, and now both countries are crying and saying, if we don't make a change here soon, we will never come back from this. So when Poilievre gets in there, and he's pretty damn smooth, man. I love that House of Parliament in Canada. I mean, you get some of our leaders, they're on the floor and they're speaking. It just seems a bit more scripted. When in Canadian Parliament, they can go tit for tat, look each other right in the eye, ramble about, address the speaker. And it just seems a little bit more lively. It would seem like it would be the perfect stage for Trudeau, and it was. But old Pierre Poilievre, that dude is no slouch, man. That guy's got it going on, and he is smart as a whip. And once he gets in, and then those that follow him in that party, that may just resurrect that Titanic we know as Canada. And we're hoping the same for our country, too. So both of our great nations are in the same bucket. Most of our peoples are very, very similar. Independent, hardy souls that do not need to be led. They would like to have a government that they can count on for the necessities and let them do their thing. But that's really all I have to say about Trudeau. I mean, everyone knows who he is, and Canada is about to get him out of there, and we are about to get Joe Biden out of here. So you see, my fellow Canadians, and that's what I feel like you guys are when you are listening in mass, we share so much commonality. That being, we have a serial fornicator, however, with young girls, that being your current prime minister who's on the outs. And we have an older buffoon in the White House named Biden. Think back to the comments. He loved it when young girls would rub along his golden hair on his shins. Boys too. But we know Joe, all he can do now is hold on to ladies really tight. Get a good whiff, grope them a little bit, but doggone Justin, he was right up there in the mix, man. And doing everything that he could. So we share those similarities. We share incompetent people that are not strong men. In fact, they are very weak men trying to govern nations of very strong men. And that is what these nations want to arrive back at. We just simply want our governments to protect us where necessary, allow us to pursue religious liberty, prosperity, and leave us the fuck alone. And these are two guys that just can't stand to do so until essentially they are removed. And in both cases, that is going to happen. So until next time on the Comfortable in Chaos podcast, I bid you bon voyage, my burgeoning flock.
Until next time, like and subscribe to the Comfortable in Chaos podcast.